A new software supply chain attack is ongoing, and it may affect your developers.
Hey, Matt, heard you got an interesting story about supply chain. Do you want to fill us in?
Sure, and it's not the one you're thinking of. So in light of the recent SolarWinds supply chain compromise story, which has been the biggest news of the last couple months, there's a renewed interest, I think, in other supply chain attack mechanisms. So there's a researcher, Alex Bursan, I hope I'm saying his name properly. He decided to approach the supply chain attack idea in terms of public packages and package managers. So if you're not a developer or even a basic coder, people will create these open source libraries or packages, which is code that other people can use, and put it out into the public for other folks to use, which is a great thing if you're trying to write some code that has to do what would normally be a complicated function to write from the ground up, like reaching out to the internet and connecting to a file server and pulling down a file. Instead of implementing that yourself, you pull in the library that does that, you make the one call. It's so much simpler. So naturally, developers use public packages all the time. Now, some folks will write specific packages for themselves or their company and keep them in an internal repository. And that's where this attack gets its roots. So what Bursan did is he decided to create packages named like internal packages that other companies might have. So if you're ABC Corp, you might have a package in your internal repository of code called ABC-Cloud or ABC-Management or any number of things like that, where it's something that you had written for yourself. And what Bursan did is he created those packages with those equivalent names. They weren't malicious. They were set up to prove his point, and what they would do is they would grab information about the host that they were installed on, the host name, version numbers, things like that, and code it in a DNS request and make a request out, just to prove that somebody had grabbed his package and run it, basically. And for a good 35 companies, he did this. He would create these packages in the Python package management system, PyPy, and Ruby Gems, which is for Ruby, NPM, I think is Node. I'm not sure on that one, but basically anywhere where you might be pulling packages from. And as it turns out, if you set the version number in the public repository higher than the internal version number for a private repository, most package managers will take a look at that and say, oh, well, your local repo's out of date. Let's go grab the newest version from the public repository, not knowing that it's actually supposed to be private code and that there shouldn't be a public version of it ever. So basically, the short and long of it is, by doing this clever naming attack, which is called a namespace confusion attack, you can trick a package manager into installing an identically named package with your malware. Pretty wild, huh?
Very wild. Now, I mean, this raises a lot of questions. I'm sure any company that's watching this would have the same ones. How would you prevent the repositories going out to the public? And I mean, it sounds like it's really easy to do.
Yes. I think the first steps would be to take a look at the package managers that you're using and configure your clients, which may be a bit of work depending on how many developers you have, but configure the clients in a way that the order of operations isn't check the public repos for a name or for a package that is equivalent or higher version. There is, I believe, a way to get your package management software to treat the internal repositories as the primary ones and not go out and look for new versions. You could also go to those public repositories and create packages with those same names so no one else can do it, and then set their version level very low, which means they're existing, no one else can use those names, and because they're low version, no one's going to go out and pull that copy up. That might help. What you also might be able to do, and this one I'm not so happy with, I think it's a little bit fragile, is to use internal package names that are harder to guess. Which is fine. I mean, it makes them harder to use if you're a developer. And I feel like it's fragile because someone could feasibly guess some of these names. I mean, if you made it wrong and hard to guess, great. But if ever any of your source code gets to the outside, like someone managed to accidentally check it in publicly or something like that, then the names are out there anyway. That's why I think that one is my least favorite of the three ideas. But it's something to think about. Now, as a result of this attack being made public, naturally, there were many copycats. A company called Sonatype has gone out and looked, and in the last couple, I think, weeks, or at least since the announcement, 275 squatted names have shown up in NPM, the public repository in NPM. So somebody else is out there doing this. So it's definitely, it's not just, usually when you hear like a researcher doing something like this, you can often say, oh, well, it's a researcher. It's still something that's sort of theoretical or may not always apply. In this case, there's evidence that it's already being done. So I would definitely take a look if you are using internal repositories like this. Take a look and see, is anybody out there in the public repos squatting those same names? See what you can do about it.
Matt, is there any I know it's hard to control the public, but are there any checks that occur on those repos that may be checking for, like when they change the versioning, right? The version number of the DLL or whatever library they're pulling. Is there any kind of checks that take place to make sure, hey, this version, we're not even at that version yet, or that specific library hasn't reached that crazy number? Because
I don't believe there is. At least I'm not aware of it. I'd love to be told that there is some sort of check in place. I think some of these package management servers are kind of the Wild West.
Okay.
There may be people doing official, like if it is really a managed package, say you're using some sort of public, for real, everybody uses this library.
Okay.
Then there's going to be some sort of, I assume, checks on that. People are going to say, okay, this new code that somebody tried to merge in, we don't know what it's doing. We're going to reject that. We're not going to take that. For packages that are really supposed to be out in the public like that, yes, a lot of the packages that are well maintained are doing this already.
Okay. Yeah.
This differs from that in that someone is going out and creating packages that should not be public in order to clobber the contents of ones that are private.
Yeah, it sounds like you would almost have to restructure how those repositories are in use for each company. I mean, each company is going to be different based on what they do, how they go about it, where their developers sit. But I mean, almost to the point where you would have to restrict any of those external public repositories, focus on your centralized management of them, apply policies, apply rules, naming conventions. It sounds like a brand new infrastructure that you would have to put in to circumvent something that is honestly really simple to do, to disrupt, add malware, any of those different tactics that an attacker would use. This really concerns me.
It's concerning. I think there are probably some changes that'll be coming. I think right now the people best positioned to do something about it are the folks who manage the code for the package managers themselves. They may be able to change a default setting in the latest version. They may be able to add the logic to say, here's a new config file. Tell us all the prefixes for packages that are internal to you, and we will never go out to the internet and find them.
There you go.
There's logic you can add to the way that the system operates that should prevent this. I hopefully somebody out there on one of those teams is taking note. On all those teams should be taking note. It wouldn't be computer security without at least one eye-opening story a week.